there's not a chance of
I can't eat with people sitting here. That's rude.
Just cover the mic and eat the chips.
Yeah.
Cover the mic, eat the chips. Cover the mic, eat the chips.
They got new chicks in the back. They got these. They got the ranch ones. They got apple.
Fred.
No.
Oh, shoot.
Close the department. Wasn't
Same
going to go
place with the
Like, what?
with the
Florida State law.
yeah.
All right, I'd like to call to order the Waxhaw Board of Commissioners regular meeting for March 27th, 2018. If you would all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have no modifications to the agenda, so I'll entertain a motion to adopt.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Public comments pertaining to items on this agenda. Roy Miles? You're here to talk about the noise ordinance. If you would, sir, please come up and speak into the microphone. And
I have two items I'm concerned about. One is on this agenda, the noise ordinance. And
would you
the other-
just, for the record, state your name and your...
I'm Roy Miles,
Thank you.
and store owner on East North Main Street. And I'd also like to comment on the new proposed one-way road they're going to put in. I don't see that on this agenda, but I'd be allowed to talk about that this time?
At the second part of the public comments.
Okay. So right now,
Noise ordinance.
noise ordinance. Okay, this is a concern I have. My brother Paul lives in the house right across the street from the brewery. And that used to be the fire department, and it has those big bay doors on it. And when they open the doors and turn the music up loud, Paul said it's so loud sometimes he can't even hear his TV in the house. And it gets him all upset all the time. And it's better for me to come and speak, because if he was here, he'd be so upset he couldn't speak. We have talked to the officials in the town of Waxhaw, and they agree they're working on it, and that I can see here the noise ordinance proposed as a decibel limit, which I think is a good thing. Paul will call the police, and we have the bylaws. Anything you can hear over 100 feet is too loud in a certain time of night. You can definitely hear this. But when the police come over, it's like, we can't hear it. When you can hear it, or they'll shut the doors, and 10 minutes later, open the doors back up. So I'm glad you're having a proposed, it won't be so subjective anymore, it'll be objective. So I'm in favor of a noise ordinance, but I also believe there needs to be enforcement of it. And we have a neighbor who has called so many times, the police won't even answer the phone when he calls anymore. And Paul feels like he's being disregarded too, as far as that goes. My family's been in that house a long time, since 1890. And to me, the Rodman home, if you just look at it, it's in horrible shape. Paul doesn't have any money. Well, he has money, I just don't know. It's all invested in property, but that home could be a beautiful attraction for Waxhaw. If anything happens to Paul, today he said, I'm moving out of here. I'm getting, he always says that when he gets frustrated. If he moves, he'll probably put it up for sale. But I've asked him, could I get it if he plans to sell? I would open it up to the public. I would love to see a beautiful floral garden there where people could come. I would like to see it used for the town of Waxhaw, but to me it is just a distraction to have so much noise right across the street. So I'll have more to say later on. But I'm in favor of the noise decibel limit.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, next up, consent agenda. I'll take Entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Recognition. Todd Matthews.
Commissioners, we're here tonight to recognize Mary Morton for 15 years of service. I've been thinking about her a while, what to say and all. When she started in 2003, she was a town clerk assistant, and later on she ended up doing events. She did a 3-day Memorial Day event. She did the July 4th parade. She did a senior citizen party. Later on, she became accounts payable, payroll, and a tax collector. Well, after a couple of years, they hired a tax collector, and she still did accounts payable. But then she came down to public service to help out. She was a public service assistant. So that lasted a little while, and then the guy that they hired left, so all the accounts payable, taxes, and payroll came to public service, which, if anybody's been to our shop, it's a little teeny office. But we managed through it. So then they hired somebody else for that, Miss Ann. So Marion became the cemetery manager, which she's great at that. Before, if you had to look up something, you go through all these deeds. Well, she made a spreadsheet. She's got everybody's name, where they're at, if they were in the military, everything about them. She likes to know everything that's going on. So when we started doing proof rolls, street inspections, she didn't understand what it was. So she went and got certified with the state, got a road scholar, so she knew what we were talking about. One day, the pesticide man come in to check her license. She didn't understand that, so she went and got certified. She's got her pesticide license now. She does good at everything she does. She's been here all of her life. She knows a lot of people. So it works out great for us. So I'd like for her to come up. I forgot one thing. She also got the fireworks started for the town of Waxhaw. But she wanted to shoot them off, so she went and got certified for that. So now she can light them. So we're here to recognize her for 15 years of service for the town of Waxhaw, for dedication. Thank you.
Marion, I just want to say, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
I think Marion exemplifies the type of employee that we have here in the town, which Todd did a good job of describing what she's done over the years, which is stepping into the gap, learning something new, contributing to our staff, but really contributing to our town overall. And so she's really an exemplary employee. And so I say congratulations for 15 great years of service.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, new business. Item H1, proposed amendment to the Town of Waxhaw ordinance regulating loud, disturbing, and unnecessary noise. The presenter is Kurt White. This is, the words of this have been to the board a couple of times, soliciting input back. I think you've had maybe a couple of comments back. I know I sent one back to make sure that we have a contingency for events, et cetera, but you want to briefly explain what you're here for?
Sure, thank you. Good evening again, Mayor and Commissioners. Yes, we did talk about the noise ordinance earlier this year, and then towards the end of last year, towards the end of 2017, it was originally being wrapped up as some of the other ordinance updates being proposed throughout the town code. But we broke it out to consider separately. One, because it is fairly one of the more time sensitive pieces of the proposed ordinance changes simply because we have been getting some citizen feedback about the importance of adding some clarity to the noise ordinance, and also because as it gets warmer, as spring starts, there's going to be more outdoor activities that could impact surrounding properties, especially in the downtown area. And so we decided to bring it forward. You have seen it before in the previous work sessions. We have not made any changes since it was originally put forth earlier this year at the end of last. And so I'm just going to review the current ordinance again briefly, talk about the reasons for the amendment, some of the methodology we use to get to the numbers, the decibel numbers, and then we can look at the proposed ordinance, and then staff would request action on the proposal. So, as we discussed before, the current noise ordinance, the section regulating loud and unnecessary noise looks like this. It specifically, the kicker with it is that it says plainly audible. So, it considers noise to be a nuisance when it is plainly audible at a distance of 50 feet overnight, or if it's 100 feet during the daytime hours. And you can kind of tell by looking at that, plainly audible can be fairly subjective, which poses a problem for the complainant. So the person who's being impacted by the noise, it's hard for them to kind of know when something is a nuisance. It's hard for the person who's potentially in violation of the ordinance to be able to comply with something that seems kind of nebulous. And then finally, for the Waxhaw police to be able to enforce it, it can become difficult when it's vague like this. So this is how it's currently written. During the work session feedback times, we did get a question from the board relating to the current ordinance and events. There is, in the existing ordinance, a provision that exempts town events from the noise ordinance, and that would remain in this proposal. Did want to point that out. So the reasons for an amendment, as I mentioned, a little bit ambiguous, subjective, and it causes it to be difficult to enforce. It's also inconsistent with best practices statewide. All the ordinances we looked at statewide include a decibel reading, and they also usually address the context the noise is happening in. So residential, commercial, how that works together. And ours does neither of those things. So we worked with the Waxhaw Police Department to look at a review of the statewide ordinances in similar sized municipalities. We did a field evaluation of those decibel levels to see actually, we tested sounds in the field. We put music on, we did various tests in the field to see what, in the Waxhaw context, how that looked. And we were also sensitive to the Waxhaw downtown area because of that unique context. And we looked at the current enforcement tools for this. Now I know, so here's the list of some of the municipalities, not the comprehensive list, but just some of the municipalities we looked at. I do realize Charlotte is not a comparable size municipality, but I did want to show that just as what does a big city do, for example. On the left here, the left numbers are the decibels, the maximum decibels during the day, and the right are the maximum decibels allowed at night. So you see the ones at night are lower for obvious reasons. The asterisk there, the measurement method varies, so it's hard to get an apples-to-apple comparison. It's hard to say, well, all cities do 50 decibels, because they measure them different ways. Some measure them at residential property lines, some measure it at the right-of-way, some measure it at the source of the noise. So it's hard to get apples to apples, but the ranges do help you get a sense of what is considered appropriate, an appropriate level of noise. So the proposed ordinance for Waxhaw, the amendment would be to noise would become a public nuisance if it was 55 decibels or more overnight, so between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., measured at the exterior of any lawfully occupied residential structure. So there's your change, adding decibels to the ordinance and adding a separation to a residential, or a consideration of residential structures. At night, during the day, it would be 65 decibels. So that's between 7 and 11, and again, that's measured from the exterior of a lawfully occupied residential structure. To give you a sense of what that is, 75 decibels is about the sound of a vacuum cleaner. 60 to 70 is about the sound of a normal conversation. Decibels are kind of like I think it's the Richter scale with earthquakes. There's a order of magnitude increase as you increase per decibel. So there's a large difference between a 70 and an 80, for example. So the proposal would, yes?
So just clarification. So if Mr. Miles's brother called in a complaint, the police would come out, stand out in front of his structure with the instrument.
Yes.
And if it was exceeded, then they would enforce the ordinance.
That would be evidence of a violation,
Okay.
right, if it exceeded the decibels listed here.
Okay.
Question as well. Just quickly, the other municipalities you compared to, did they define day and night the same time frame you do? Like night starts at, you have it broken down as 7 to 11 and 11 to 7?
It varied, but it was generally either 7 to 11 or 10. Sometimes it was 10.
Okay.
Yes, so then, and just also, I didn't include it in the presentation, but first violation of the ordinance is a $50 fine, second is $100, and then $500, and that's within a 12-month period. So that it does escalate. The fines would escalate if the same violator or if the same person was found to be in violation of it multiple times. So this would add clarity for police, for businesses, and residents, as I mentioned, and it would make it consistent with the ordinances statewide. So the action requested then would be to approve the ordinance amending and regulating loud, disturbing, and unnecessary noise, which is Chapter 130.05A10. So if there's any questions, happy to continue.
First of all, thanks for pulling it out of the big body of work and bringing it forward, because it's something that's very actionable. So questions from the board?
Just one.
Mr. Burrow.
Where does it appear in town that most of the complaints come from?
Well, anecdotally, most complaints come when a commercial use is close to a residential use. Happens a lot downtown, but I would have to ask the police for exact official violation numbers.
Thank you.
Anybody else? What would you like to do with it?
It's adopted.
Huh? I need a motion to adopt.
I'll make a motion to adopt the ordinance.
So we have a motion to approve the ordinance number 2018007, amending the amending and regulating loud, disturbing, and unnecessary noise. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you.
Strategic Park Master Plan, Dina. You were here presenting less than an hour ago, so probably don't need to go through the presentation again for us.
Okay,
I mean,
just go.
you've got a proposal in front of us.
I do. Hello again. So we went through the process of vetting companies for the strategic master plan. After all that process happened through blind study and scoring and through staffing, we are suggesting Besham to be our consultant for the strategic master plan. They came in at the lowest bid, also the best timeline. Staff has worked with them before, and we're very excited to have them part of the team if you also choose for them to be. The ask is to get approval from the council for the town manager to execute the contract as well as the capital project ordinance for the park master plan, and to award the contract to Besham.
I have a question. Do you know who did the last park plan in 12? Was it the town or was it a consultant?
It was a consultant,
Land
and
design. Land design.
Land Design's doing the,
I
our
think they did the last park.
Stewart's in my head, but I'm not
Stewart did the downtown park.
downtown park, okay. I'll have to research that. I apologize that it's not in my head right now.
Clerk?
Thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Burrow?
Thank you, sir.
You have called it Besham, and yet it's Benesh. Is it a difference?
It's my southern.
Okay.
I apologize.
No, I just want to make sure we're voting for the right
Yes.
company.
I thought it was a different spelling.
I kept looking at that too, but I didn't see anything.
I can't help that, I'm sorry.
He says Melody has it.
Do we have additional questions? Commissioner Westlake?
No.
Commissioner Lee? Commissioner Stewart?
Yeah, I do have a question or just a comment. You're saying that if we do this, is this going to take them 8 months?
Yes, sir. Yes,
And-
ma'am. I'm so.
That was Southern?
No, ma'am, and I apologize. I'm not going to leave that down. Yes, ma'am.
Should I speak lower?
No, it's,
So that'll take 8 months.
Yes.
And then you were talking about it'll be another 6 months if at the point we get the master park plan and you put in for the grant,
okay.
or a grant, it'll be another 6 months. You said it takes 6 months. So that's 14 months before.
Okay,
We could-
I get your logic now, I'm sorry. So we have to have the updated plan to go for the grants regardless.
Right.
So it depends on when they're asking for their applications in. So for the Partif is actually in May. So we'll have it in time to get the application ready for May, to ask for whatever park we want to put it towards. With the LWCF, their application is a little bit different because they're more on a as-need basis on the project, like I said earlier. So for example, my last park, I got the LWCF before I got the Partif and used it for the match, but the reason why I got the WCF is because of the project type, and that was because of the wetlands. It depends on the project type. So the main one we need to get in for is the timeline would be the Partif grant in May. So we were ready for it. It's actually good timing, and it's good timing for y'all for budget.
And what's the amount for that one?
Which one?
The one from May?
That is, you can get the highest match would be $500,000, and then it would go down from there depending on what your project size is.
Okay.
So that's good, substantial funds to help out. We have to have, and it's all about the points. So if we don't have a good application, and this is a big part of it, then we lose out on points. And it's almost, you can't be a player without all your pieces. I just want to get us geared up to have the best product we can give out.
But there's still no guarantee.
There's never any guarantee.
Any grant.
I don't have that in my magic wand, I'm sorry.
Southern wand.
With some of the grants, though, as long as you are working on your master plan and you can show that you're working on that plan, you can still apply for that funding.
If
Not those two specific grants, but there are other grants.
there are other grants, yes, ma'am. It's when the application's ready to turn in, doesn't mean we can't start working on them. But the application's ready to turn in, we have to have this document
Document.
with it.
Right.
Yes.
So that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
Once we get it's 8 months to get that plan.
Mhm.
And then another 6 months probably to wait once we put that in. So
For the
that's
L-
14 months before we would even know anything, correct, with the
With LCWF.
The LWCF is that a little bit
500,000.
different, but yes, the big one, the part of grants, a little bit different.
Would have to wait till May anyway.
But you've got to, that's a 50% matching grant, so y'all have got to have in the bank that 500K ready to go for it as well. So, because we have to have actually a consensus by the board to say, yes, we're committed to go through this grant, and yes, we have committed X amount of dollars to match. So you have to be in a position to do that, too. So that's the reason why I want to make sure you're cool on budget.
So on the other grants, if you are awarded 2, then that can go toward your
So for example,
matching, which makes it less for the taxpayer.
yes. So, for example, my previous park, I got both grants, and the town only had to put in, don't quote me on this, but around 30,000 on top of it to even everything out, because of, unfortunately, we had the plans for the area, but they were 2 years old with the budget numbers, and as you know, construction is just getting higher, so we had to supplement that. Because when I put in for the grants, it was one price, but then, you know, construction cost changes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
No.
So with no further questions, is this something we want to do? Yes, no? If it is, I would entertain a motion to find the park master plan bid to the lowest responsible bidder, Benish or Besham, for $64,625 and authorize the town manager, Mr. Ferguson, to execute the contract.
So moved.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Let's have it, 5-0. Need a second motion with this, and I would be happy to entertain a motion to approve a capital project ordinance number 2018-008, establishing a capital project fund for the park master plan as presented and approved.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. Okay. Next item up is really procedural. It's the initiation of volunteer annexation petition 18-222. Grove Manor LLC is requesting voluntary annexation into Waxhaw. And to get the process started, we really need to take 3 direct steps. So the first step is to, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution in your packet directing the town clerk to investigate the annexation petition.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then to Clerk Schuler, can you verify the petition was investigated and is sufficient?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And then with that, I think you gave me a replacement document. So with that, then I will entertain a motion to approve the resolution scheduling the public hearing for April 10th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. in the Police Department Community Room, 3620 Providence Road South. The resolution also contains the legal description Exhibit A and is attached. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, reports. Just really want to mention one item briefly. Thursday, I will be attending a legislative review session offered by the league representing the town. I think Commissioner Burrow, you were on one of the committees, but due to your health, you can't make it up there.
Oh, fine.
Are you going to ride now? Go?
Yeah.
Okay. And basically what that is we're going to get an update on transportation funding, what the legislative legislature hopes to do in the short session, so we can come back and then decide what we want to go up and, as a group, go up and talk to the legislature at our town hall day. We've been warned because every district in the state of North Carolina has a competitive race going. The legislative session will be short, so they've advised us to get it down to 1 or 2 items when we go up. And then that will be used to then begin to develop an agenda for the long session next year, which we'll have more time to work on. But just thought I'd update, and glad you're going too. So, Mayor Pro Tem? Commissioner Stewart? Burns?
You're slipping.
Commissioner Lee? Commissioner Westlake?
Just an update. I went to the Library Board of Trustees meeting last Tuesday, and they have chosen an architect for their planning for the new library, and they could not give the name of the architect yet because they are still negotiating contract, and they're expecting the negotiation to last about 30 to 45 days. Once the architect is announced, then the architect will select sites and bring them back to the board. And the library director is saying the county does not have any locations to suggest to the architect at this time, that it could take 6 to 9 months or as long as a year for them to announce a site, and they will be having community and stakeholder meetings before selecting. I do think that, I don't know if it's proper, but if the board wanted to discuss it sometime in the future, I know we have 2 plans on the books that have suggested library sites in Waxhaw. If we wanted to, just give those ideas, or if there's anything we can do, but maybe something to discuss in the future.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Ferguson?
Report on 2 events that happened this past weekend. One was the Easter event, which weather held out, and that was successful and had good turnout for Easter. Second was we had a business that had a grand reopening on Saturday, Massage Envy, after 10 years of providing service to the community, refreshed the building and refreshed the business, and so they had a grand reopening on Saturday. So an upcoming event is April 5th. There's our senior coffee from 10 to 12, McDonald House, and so that's an opportunity. The topic this year, or this session, is actually art. So there'll be some art efforts there. And then on and out there, the next big event for the town really is the May 19th and 20th Kaleidoscope Fest, which is kind of out there a little bit, but that one's on the radar. And that's it.
Thank you. General public comments. Candace DeFinis. Didn't mean to startle you.
I didn't think I was first on the list. Good evening. My name is Candace DeFinis. I live at 8313 Willow Branch Drive in Waxhaw. Since Saturday morning, Save the Park reached out to the community via our Facebook page and asked one simple question: who would want to come help and clean up Waxhaw Marvin Road Park? Since then, we have heard from 80 willing community residents that be willing to spend their time and talents and put sweat equity into Waxhaw Marvin Road Park. As Waxhaw continues to grow, we should be expanding our parks to provide residents and children with places to go and enjoy the outdoors. We should be fostering community involvement and building community spirit, and the best way I feel that we could do that at this time would be working together on a community project in partnership with the town of Waxhaw and Save the Park to open Waxhaw Marvin Road Park. With Waxhaw expanding their homes and their apartments, it is now becoming critical that we have open space that we can preserve. Our park space, currently on the inactive list, represents 95 acres. If we work together, we can go ahead and open a considerable amount of that park space to our residents by sweat equity that our residents are willing to put into the effort. Tonight I ask, will you partner with Save the Park in order to start this community service effort and community service project? Will you allow, much like Wesley Chapel has, to have a Friends of the Park effort that supports our parks and allows us to continue to support the efforts of opening our inactive park space? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miles. Welcome back.
Thank you for voting for the decibel ordinance. That will be appreciated. Concern for the Rodman House, the proposed road, and I'm not current on what the status is on that, but to make east-north Main Street one way, and my understanding is it's to be one way in front of Paul's house also. Now, what that would do for the Rodman home, and like I said, it may not be Paul, it may be me, or maybe someone else that would really like to take that home. And I would like to see it restored like the home, I can't remember the name of it, right under the water tank. Beautiful job. I would love to see the Rodman house restored. I think it would be a great asset for Waxhaw, kind of like the old railroad bridge. Everybody loves that. Now, I personally believe, I can't say this because Paul owns it, I don't, but to me that should be opened up to the public. The land, the house, everything. Now, one day, if it is ever developed, having only a one-way entrance would be a real problem. Every day I go out that way. I don't exit his driveway to the right. Then you hit Howie Mine Road, you take a left, you can't get back on Providence because the traffic's backed up. Every day Paul comes down Old Providence, the road in front of his house, and comes in. And he goes up to Lowe's, Walmart all the time. That means if that road is closed, he's going to have to come down 16 Grove Street. And I have seen the traffic backed up to BB&T, and I've heard it's been backed up to Food Line. And that would put him on that regularly, or anyone who wants to come, depending on what that house could be. It's going to make it real hard for them to get in or out. I looked at that. I know the proposal is one way. They're concerned about the sidewalk in front of the store buildings. There are 3 lots that if you pull in, you can't open the passenger door. But I looked at this is my suggestion. Go over 1 block on West North Main Street in front of Mary O'Neill's and the bike depot, and you will see the traffic, the parking has been moved about 3 feet more toward the railroad. And I would suggest you do the same thing. Just, if you're concerned about doors not being able to open, just move the road over a little bit. And for the life of me, I have heard the project is going to cost $1.5 million. I can't imagine a sidewalk costing $1.5 million because 3 cars can't open their doors. And that could be much cheaper. Put that money on finding some land and building some parking. Now, the second problem Paul has, now that the ice cream place is opened, it's even worse. Today he told me he couldn't get in his driveway. One day I was at his house, I couldn't get out. I ran up and caught the lady, and she said, I'll only be there in 15 minutes, I'm going to get an ice cream. They park in front of his house. The signs don't matter, the no parking thing on the asphalt doesn't matter. One day there was a car parked there, and I was waiting for that person to get out so I could get into Paul's house. And the mailman was behind me, and he said, he got mad at me for blocking him. He couldn't get to Paul's mailbox. And I said, I can't get in. I'm in the way because I can't get in. I mean, this is daily. The other day there was a truck parked there all night long. If there was ever an emergency, he couldn't get out. I don't think there's a person in this room would want that in their driveway. Last week, his mailbox was run over. They pull in there and then back into the mailbox. He fixed it, and today it's broken again. They have a public mailbox out there that has been hit twice that I know of, and they put a yellow iron pole in there, and it was bent over and it fixed. The parking is just a real problem there. And And I don't think putting a one-way street there is just going to compound it for us trying to get in and out of Paul's house. And I think we need to think long range. What will this house be one day? Do we really want not only Paul and I to have problems, but if this is open to the public, it's going to be problems for everybody. So I would suggest that you really rethink this one-way road idea. I know we have been told over and over to keep old Waxhaw historic, but it seems like there's a group that wants to make new changes in downtown. And I would suggest on this one that you don't change it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Ian Simpson?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Ann M. Simpson. I live at 2517 Trading Ford Drive here in Waxhaw. During the last Board of Commissioners meeting on March 13th, the Board unanimously passed a resolution to suspend the Organization Advisory Board and remove any remaining members, of which I happen to be one. I am in support of this decision by the Board of Commissioners to reevaluate the role and function of the Organization Advisory Board, as it was originally created to serve as one of the four main pillars of the Main Street program. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize and acknowledge Town Clerk Melody Schuler and especially Deputy Clerk Kelly Curry, who is our board's staff liaison, for all their support, assistance, and guidance to me and the Organization Advisory Board. They have worked tirelessly tracking, printing, and compiling notebooks of volunteer applications, organized meetings, as well as remaining in consistent contact and engaging with applicants throughout the process. They are extremely valuable town employees, and I will miss collaborating with both of you. Lastly, I would like to thank and express my gratitude to the Board of Commissioners who had appointed me and gave me the opportunity to serve on the Organization Advisory Board. I enjoyed my experience and believe the Organization Advisory Board was able to elevate the volunteer program process. Although I am no longer a formal Town of Waxhaw volunteer, as a private citizen, I still plan to support, promote, and advocate for the Town of Waxhaw and the community which we all call home.
Thank you. Earl Cook?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, staff. My name is Earl Cook, and I am a resident within the municipal limits of Waxhaw. My comments are not just for you tonight, but they're even more for the audience and the public at large that may see this video. I want to talk about Kensington Elementary and Cuthbertson Middle School and the Odyssey of the Mind competition. A lot of folks are not familiar with Odyssey of the Mind, but it is the world's largest creative thinking, problem-solving competition. This is its 39th year. NASA is its primary sponsor. And just to give you an idea of how large Odyssey of the Mind is, this year in the World Finals, there will be over 30 states and 28 countries competing. Now, why do I want to talk about that? Because you have winners right here in Waxhaw, repeated winners, winners that are building tradition, the same as a basketball or football team. In fact, South Meck videos them because they're the team South Meck wants to be. Now think about this. I want to give you some names in a minute, but if these young students were basketball or football players, we would be having parades and brass bands for them. This year, they competed first in the Central Region. North Carolina is divided into 5 regions. Central Region competition takes place at Wingate University. The schools are divided into 3 divisions: elementary, middle, and high. We compete only in the elementary and middle categories. And it's quite something to be on a university campus with hundreds of teams, first from the Central Region, and then later This year, the state competition was also held at Wingate University, and see teams from Raleigh, Chapel Hill, Wilmington, Asheville, and watch our Waxhaw students compete against them. This creative problem-solving competition is 5 problems. It's not a written test. It's a performance. To give you some idea of how this breaks down, they're given a problem in September, and then they go to work on it for several months. Both of these teams already have well over 200 hours into it. Think about that. For you, that would be 5 40-hour work weeks. Think about their coach and those students and what it's like. This year, Kensington Elementary and Cuthbertson Middle both won second place. First and second place go to the World Finals. This year, the World Finals are in Ames, Iowa, at Iowa State University. These are repeat teams, folks. That says something. Think about it. For these students and for Waxhaw, this is March Madness. This is the Final Four. Now, when they are there competing against all of those other places, students from China, and there are over 1 million students in China that compete in Odyssey of the Mind. Now that is competition. You know, Odyssey of the Mind makes athletes out of artists, engineers, academicians. You should be proud of them. But the story doesn't just end there, that they're going back at the end of May. How do they get there? They need money. They need lots of money. It's a minimum of $12,000 a team to get them there. And it's hard for elementary and middle school parents to pull that out of their pocket. So I want these comments to hit your ears and ask for your support in every way that you can, to market, get the word out, for the public to hear this, and keep your eyes and ears open for requests that are coming. There will be ways to contribute and help. But just a little more about what their competition is like. It's an 8-minute program. It's timed. They are limited to $145 for their entire set. They cannot receive outside help. That means that their parents, their coaches can't do any of the work nor give them the ideas. So when you are watching 4th and 5th graders in elementary and 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in middle school, it's amazing to see how their minds can work. They haven't been boxed in like we have. They truly bring creative thinking and problem solving to the forefront. They're limited to $145 a problem, and that's it. Now, how do I know those things? Because my wife and I have judged at both regional and state competitions the last few years. We have not judged Kensington or Cuthbertson teams, because you cannot. And it requires quite a bit of training to do that. So I just want to point out that Amy Miller and her assistant, Autumn Bell, the coaches at Kensington, and Maria Taylor and her assistant, Tina Daniker, the coach at Cuthbertson Middle, need your help and support. So just please be proud of them. Let them know that, and give them all of the help you can. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes tonight's agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.